Welcome to Government CIO's The Agile Advocate Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Drew. Government CIO's mantra is transforming government IT, and we're heads down, focused on doing just that. Part of that transformation is introducing innovative ideas and concepts into the federal space, and at times being disruptive. Today, we're going to be talking with a like-minded innovator and disruptor, Mike Morris, CEO of Topcoder. Topcoder is the number one crowdsourced company with over 1.5 million data scientists and developers across the world. It works with government agencies to infuse crowdsourced data science innovation into their organizations in an efficient, cost-conscious manner. Welcome to the podcast, Mike, and thanks for coming down.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
First, as we do with all our guests, tell us a little bit about yourself, Mike, and how you came to be the CEO of Topcoder.
Okay. So Boston native, went to Boston College High School, later went on to Boston College. Computer science was my major. When I graduated, I jumped into a small software consulting company, and it was a great time. The economy was booming, and there was a lot of work to be done. Company grew really quickly, and we realized while growing this company that the biggest problem we had was finding good technical talent. In that journey, the concept of Topcoder came out. Like, hey, can we find a way to identify technical talent regardless of where they are geographically, regardless of what schools they went to? So what we did was we started essentially almost like a sporting league. We started to run contests across the world and have people compete against each other, solving programming problems, and they would get ratings and stats, and they would have profiles. So the whole concept of Topcoder came out of that desire just to find good technical talent. And the idea of the competition came up because when I was in that consulting company before Topcoder, we ran challenges, we ran competitions just for fun, and people loved it. They loved showing off in front of their friends, in front of their colleagues, and we loved it too because you'd find that there are certain people that had skill sets you had no idea they had. Right? It's usually the quiet people that are sitting over there in their computer, and you find out that it's just a complete, brain when it comes to certain types of problems. And so that was the concept for Topcoder, and we really went out on a limb and just said, if we can create this community, then we'll be able to create a business on top of it.
You did like the fantasy football for software.
That's exactly how I describe it.
That's exactly incredible.
How I describe it. Yeah.
And is that basically the whole innovation behind your concept? I mean, get people out there, see what they can do, really do, and then take that in. Where do you go from there, though? So
you have a marketplace. It's a platform. And one side of the marketplace is that fantasy football side of it. It's the competitors, as I call them sometimes, but our community members. There's 1.4 million and growing people in the Topcoder community, and every country around the globe grows by about 50,000 people per quarter.
50,000 a quarter?
Yep.
Wow.
But the other side of the marketplace is the harder part. It's the customers. So we work primarily with large enterprise customers. We work with many government agencies. We find need for technology talent that we can go and split up and put out into the community as challenges. So we take real work, break it up, and put it out to the community to have them compete with each other.
So give me a couple examples without, I don't want you to name names if you can have to, but like who would be like a prototypical client?
So I'll give you two examples. One is our longest commercial client is Comcast. And work we did with them spans multiple years, multiple departments within Comcast, but largely was centered in what I would call advanced R&D. So their next set of products that are coming out, very experimental, hard to know whether or not they would be successful or not. Skill sets changed constantly. And we would do a lot of the newer prototype work for them because we could rapidly find the people with the skill sets, create those virtual teams because they were spread all over the world, and get the projects done quickly. So it's a great use case for us, and it built up a lot of other customers ended up resembling that and growing their business with us, similar to Comcast. Another one is we just recently finished a project. It was a collaboration between Topcoder, Harvard, and Dana-Farber Institute. And it was to build a machine learning or a computer vision algorithm that would treat lung cancer. So using artificial intelligence to treat lung cancer. So previously, there has been AI to identify things in images and say, hey, this is, I think, cancer. This one is actually a whole different ballgame. It's saying, nope, we know that this patient has lung cancer. We're going to use a machine learning algorithm, a computer vision algorithm, to be able to say, this is exactly where you should treat it. And it used the intelligence of a set of oncologists and a bunch of data that Dana-Farber had to learn how to detect that exact part of the image. And it's a huge breakthrough, because if AI can be as accurate as an expert oncologist, anybody can have access to that type of treatment. You don't just have to go to Boston and sit down with the top oncologists in the world. You can get access to this much more readily. So that's something we just finished. That's a world changer.
That's incredible. Big data agencies. NOAA. I know a couple of people work at NOAA, NASA. Those must be really great targets for you.
They're both fantastic customers. So NASA runs a program called the Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation. And we are one of the founding members of that program. They've actually helped us go into other departments and other organizations within the government and bring this concept of the gig economy, of crowdsourcing. And we've done amazing projects with them. We have programs that are running in the International Space Station. I'd like to say the first crowdsourced application to run in space came from Topcoder. It's a project called ISS Fit, and it tracks what the astronauts eat, how they exercise, and basically making sure that they're staying healthy and come back to Earth the best that they can. And then with NOAA, we just started a set of projects with them. It's a year-long set of algorithmic iterations to improve the forecasting of weather. So think about that one, right? We haven't done it yet, so there's no bragging, but if we can do it, that's a problem.
You are on a whole different level.
So that would be an amazing problem. And, it comes down to partnering with companies that have that type of data. So NASA, NOAA, Digital Globe, they just have tons of data.
I don't think people understand pulling data from a constellation like GOES 24/7 since the 60s, and you don't get a day off. I think I'm going to back off for a couple of days. That's been pulling down there, giving data since that time.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And that they say data is the new currency, or something like that.
They're rich.
It's true.
So this is the Agile Advocate podcast. So let's jump into Agile and DevOps. Let's talk about something that came straight from your communique, DevOps and culture. Talk about it all the time. And why tools are not DevOps. And by the way, I thought I'd share this with you. A tool vendor, they actually, I'm not going to name names, they actually have, not on the box, they don't have boxes anymore, right? But they advertise DevOps in a box.
Ooh.
I always want to say it's that, wow. Pulp Fiction, open up the things like.
That's maybe DevOps in a cloud. I could see that, a little bit better. But no, DevOps is, it really is a culture. It's a mindset. It's a way of thinking, right? It is not something you can't buy DevOps. And that's the issue that a lot of companies have today. CIOs will spend a lot of money. You can buy tools, certainly. You can use open source tools, which are fantastic. You can hire people that know how to do DevOps. But unless you change the culture, then you're not going to get the results you're looking for. And I'll give you an idea. Like when you start to think about disrupting something, changing anything, if you just try to change it a little bit, you're probably going to really limit your thinking. Like, okay, well, I just have to do this incremental change, make it a little bit better. Let's try to improve it by 3 or 4%. Okay. But what if you said, well, no, I want to change it by 500%. Then you have to completely blow up whatever you did previously and start from scratch and think differently. I challenge a lot of people, like when you're thinking about DevOps, that's the way you should think about it. That you're not going out and just trying to do one more build per week. Try to do 1,000 more builds per year. If you start thinking like that, you then get to a place where you realize the importance of DevOps and automation, and that becomes a cultural way to think.
You know, we just got done completing a 3-part podcast called The DevOps Entry Point. It's titled DevOps Entry Points, Context, Maturity, and then Metrics. And it talks about the why of DevOps. And the why of DevOps is for lots of different forces, product vendors, the way it started. It started in finance. It was kind of co-opted by the manufacturers of GE and everything. So it had this strange siloing of resources. We have infrastructure and security and testing and development. And you're like, why do we do that? I need all of these talents in one team to deliver my product. So DevOps really talks about you really need, we call it culture. What they really should call it is reorganizing the resources in a way that makes sense for delivering a product, right?
Yeah.
Sure, assembly line is kind of nice, and wash machines go down that well in a GE place, but you're constricting me in a way that you don't have to do that. You can put everybody on a team, security guys, all of those come together to form that DevOps team and approach and process and thought, just like you were talking about. So, you know, understanding your DevOps maturity level, and that's really, I mean, we talk to organizations and they'll say, yeah, I'm very mature. I'm like, well, why is that? Because I thought I was. But you really need to understand how you sit next to your peers in the industry, how good you are. It's like in sports, right? You're the best foul shooter on the court when you're all alone. You're killing it out there, right? Until somebody goes out there.
Right.
So do you talk to your customers about maturity models and assessments in any way to understand how they get to that, wherever they're at, to that optimal state? Do you ever have those kind of discussions?
I do. And it goes different levels. You know, I think I would say a lot of the people out there still do think DevOps is something you buy, right? So that's a challenge, like to get through those conversations. I think one of the things to start with is to know how mature you become. You first need to know how immature you were, right? And that's a conversation that is
That's a tough conversation.
Difficult conversation, right? You know,
especially when that level is.
Yeah. But, you know, the CIOs and the leaders out there that are looking to make a difference and make a change, and they're open to have that conversation. And we have many customers that drive us in new ways of thinking. And one of the things that I think that Topcoder helps with is because we are all virtual, it's a different level of DevOps. Like, it's really more pure in many ways, because you could have people in different time zones, different countries, different backgrounds, different languages, committing code to the same repository, and you need it all to work seamlessly. And maybe that person that's committed code yesterday is completely different the next day that's on the same piece of code. Because we're so transactional, it makes you have to break the bonds between the individuals involved and just focus on the process. The word that keeps on coming to mind, it's a little bit more pure, because it really is. I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's not about the person involved in the DevOps process. It's about the process.
Yeah. So you can't depend on me sitting next to you. And so it actually has to be work when you put it in. And I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. When you do it and it's 18 hours ago, I'm dead in the water if you mess it up.
Yeah.
Wow. So measuring. Yeah, right. Measuring is come to be my favorite topic, because getting the metrics, getting your KPIs, and then the worst, getting the SLAs and establishing those agreed upon, those are difficult. So how do you apply you've got tons of people around the world working on pipelines. How do you apply those to your pipelines, to your delivery pipelines and in your development processes?
So we have thousands of projects running, thousands of people committing code on those projects. You know, one way to look at it is, you know, all that really matters is it's all about getting things to production. It's getting that path easier for the developer to get things into production. Actually take it a step further, and you can start measuring the success of your DevOps program and your developers by measuring the transactions that run through the code that goes to production. So think about that for a second. Now we live in a container world. You can launch a container out there. You can now measure how much that container is used, right? Not just the quality of it, how many errors come out of it, what's the logging that comes out of it, the security checks. You can start analyzing the usage of it. Okay.
And how would you use that, the usage of it? You're just like almost a popularity contest on this one, right?
Well,
it's like, hey, this thing is getting a hit. It must be good, or at least it can handle what I...
So more importantly, this thing's getting hit. It must be good. And the person that wrote it must be good. And the person that reviewed it must be good. And the person that, implemented the security protocol that we use to check it must be good. There's credit that goes down a string. Now to me, okay, think about this in a world. Take a container of code and pretend it was a song. What would happen? Song would hit the radio. More people listen to it. The more money the person that sang the song would get. Okay? He's an artist. Think about that. And could we ever apply that to people writing code?
Wow. So you take how well it's used, how well it's performing, and how well its security posture is, and rifle it back to kudos to the people who did it.
So
that's pretty awesome.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
but that's where I think it's going.
And that's where your bonuses are coming.
That is what I do want to do that. And Topcoder is a great platform to be able to add that to people's profiles.
That is an awesome idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
So security. If you're dealing in the federal space, security is huge. And security is huge not only like, I hear people say security is important. And I put out new images of those new shoes, and they have to, the image has to be there. But really, when you're talking about security in the federal space, and I was in the commercial space for a long time. I've only been in the federal space for like 5 years. I really understand the sensitivity of security. PII, things can't be quite almost good in the Census Bureau. We can't kind of get things right as we go through, right? We got to have our numbers straight. What's kind of your experience so far with security and some of the customers you're dealing with?
I think our biggest risk in security is a lack of discipline in process. So most people have a really well-defined process that, if followed correctly, should produce secure code, should produce secure intellectual property, clean intellectual property. But traditionally, it's been very manual, the enforcement of those policies. With crowdsourcing, with the gig economy, we pay people based on the review of their code, right? Depending on how good of a quality review score that somebody gets determines how much they get paid. So this has been our model since the beginning. So we have to be very good at it. We can't mess it up, right? Somebody's paychecks is going to be determined based on our reviews.
Or even more importantly, whatever I measure, it gets better, right? So if I'm constantly measuring that, and you can do that, that's pretty good.
And what DevOps allows us to do is, if you do automate it, and you use tools like Jenkins, and we use Circle CI, you can enforce the DevOps processes, things like security checks, static analysis, security screens, IP checking at the fundamental level of a check-in. Every single time you check in, not when you're ready for a build or after the fact, where most people do it. Hey, I'm going to do a code review after I get this thing to production. I got to get it working, got to get it out the door, and then I'm going to go review the code. And you know what I might do too? I might make some pieces of it generic so I can reuse it. Like, guess what? After the fact coding doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. It's a phenomenon that never happens.
I'm so glad you're experiencing these same things. Yeah. It's like, I really test all my code, but I don't do it right away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a developer. I committed every one of these sins multiple times.
Oh, me too.
So.
I did. I'm very judgmental when other people do it. That's awesome. So the security is baked in to your process.
It's baked in. It determines So we use SonarQube, we use check marks, we have our own internal things that we've written.
Do you have security people on your check-ins, on your requests, on your commits, everything so they're seeing and producing an audit trail against it?
We have policy, and we've automated it. So it is not a person doing something. We do in our code reviews, there are pieces that cover security, and that is manual done by people, done by reviewers. There are actually people in our community, in our global community, that have proven themselves and elevated to a reviewer status. That is manual, but most of it we are trying to automate as much as possible. So we can just use the data, use the metrics, and then people do view the results of those metrics. I mean, you have to look at a security scan and it comes back with something all the time. So you've got to determine, whether or not it's something that you need to pay attention to, correct, change. Well, maybe this person didn't satisfy the requirements for these reasons. So there is some manual, review that happens after, when the scans come back. But we try to automate as much as possible. And particularly when it comes to security, it's typically a pass-fail. Right? It is, okay, this passed. Okay, no, this failed and has to be fixed. One of the things that we've done in our environment is given the ability for developers to almost pre-compile their solutions. Like you can run it through, go through your checks, go through your audits, go through your scans before your code is due.
In a sandbox kind of way.
Right. In our environment, we allow them access to those tools. It's almost pre-compiling. And that's caused us to reduce the amount of things that we find. Right.
Just broken build,
right.
Basically.
It shouldn't happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is music to my ears. So, as I understand it, you guys see yourself like an industry disruptor. What do you see besides Topcoder as the next big disruptor in the industry?
I get scared when I think about what artificial intelligence in the world of coding will look like. I'm not naive to say that, computers won't code themselves. That's sort of already happening for certain things. But I do think that the companies that have the data, the amount of code that's going through them, and frankly, a lot of these companies that are DevOps companies are collecting this data that they have access to. And they'll be able to build automation on top of it. That worries me just from a disruption. Honestly, it'll be good for the industry in many ways. It'll allow us to do more with technology, build more things.
You're not so sure it's a socially good thing.
I actually am. I'm generally an optimist when it comes to AI because I think that the bar will just get set higher and then there'll be more advanced work to be done. It's not that the work's going to go away. I'm definitely not a person that thinks that, hey, if I go automate that, jobs are going to be replaced. I think that, no, if I go automate that, people are going to get more complex jobs, better jobs, more exciting jobs. I'm an optimist. So
you are an optimist.
Like that. Yeah, yes. I know. And I know I'm not always.
And that's good. That's good.
But I do worry about AI when it comes down to these companies that own the data. So
data's power.
Amazon, AWS, Google. Azure, the DevOps environments they're setting up. If you look, it's becoming a closed loop system. You've got GitHub as part of Microsoft, as they start building the development environments in the cloud. So AWS has Cloud9, all that data is going to be valuable data to apply automation to going forward. So
what's the next big thing on your radar?
Next thing for us will be making the use of the gig economy as easy as clicking the Uber button, okay? So, when most people think of the gig economy, they think it allows me to get a burrito at 2 a.m., okay? On-demand burritos.
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. It's a great thing. But I think as we look at it in our industry, it's still really hard to build a piece of custom software. And our big innovation is going to be on the user experience from a customer side. And I really want to be able to pull up my mobile app and build my next generation mobile app on my mobile app, right? I want it to be that easy where I can pull it up, click a button, and my Uber driver's coming to me. There's a lot that needs to be done to do that, but ours is going to be just simplifying the experience for people that are trying to build custom code. So if you think about today, they have serverless computing. Makes complete sense. You could see that coming a mile away now that it's here, right? So what about developerless computing? So I go out, I have a container, I put it out, and it automatically will handle its provisioning. It will deploy itself wherever it needs to be. It'll be accessible. I don't have to worry about it. Now, what if I go out and the container that I need isn't there. Wouldn't it be pretty cool if it was just built for me? That's kind of the developerless computing. I mean, there's still developers that have to do the building, but I don't have to employ them. Right? There's still servers behind the scenes in serverless computing, but I don't have to manage them. So that's something where if the experience gets easy enough, your requesting of a piece of software becomes the invitation for somebody to build it.
Wow, it's a brave new world. So that's enough for the business questions. Now I come with the fun question. Memorial Day weekend's coming up. You know what that means? Lacrosse.
Yes, it does.
I saw that you're a lacrosse fan player.
I played in college, yeah.
Played at Boston College?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love lacrosse.
I coach
Do you?
2 teams today, yeah. My two 8-year-old teams.
Okay.
Yeah.
That must be a kick. Lacrosse at 8?
It is it's so great. So my son is 8 and he so we're in a game last weekend and he shot and scored a behind the back shot at 8 years old.
Wow.
So half of me is like, oh my gosh, that was so great. And the other half of me was, you're kind of a punk.
Okay, hot dog, stop that.
I had to have the assistant coach. I'm like, you need to talk to him about that because I'm not sure how I'm going to react. So just take him aside and just tell him that's not the right thing to do.
And behind you going, yes.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be a good weekend. I just wish my Terps were in it. Well, thank you, Mike, for coming down. Really appreciate it. Taking time for your schedule. I certainly hope we can do this again real soon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
The Agile Advocate is a production of Government CIO Media and Research. For more podcasts, head to governmentcio.com/podcasts. The Agile Advocate is produced by Amy Kluber. It is hosted by Bill Drew. Edited by Chris Edwards. Theme music provided by Big Hoax. If you're interested in sponsoring a podcast, contact us at sponsor@governmentcio.com.